Okay. Um, Hood's Last Gamble. This is the latest game from Hollandspiele Games, designed by John Tyson. He's done more aggressive attitudes and Objective Shreveport before this one. It's a similar system. It's an operational level Civil War game. This I was very excited about because there are no good games on the Franklin campaign, except for some here. Here are my shelves. This classic, Embrace an Angry Wind from the Civil War Brigade series from the Gamers. That is another, it's brigade level game on the Franklin campaign. Embrace an Angry Wind is actually the title of a book by, I think it was by Wiley Sword, on the Franklin campaign. And it was the Confederate invasion of Tennessee in 1864, late, like fall, winter 1864. Ended up being a disaster for Hood, who proved that while he was an excellent divisional and corps commander, was not a good army commander. But by that point, the Confederates were in a bad way. So here, as Hood's Last Gamble, the title tells you, this is not it is a gamble. It's not something that the Confederates are likely to be particularly successful at. You got to have some luck on your side, as you do anytime you gamble. I found this to be totally in keeping with what I've come to expect from the Hollandspiele John Tyson titles so far. This one actually had a couple of improvements over previous versions. And full disclosure, this is a review copy that Tom Russell sent me from Hollandspiele. I had previously liked the two Tyson games from Hollandspiele prior to this, so Tom Russell watches my reviews and for some reason likes them, which is that's great. I'm all for that. So, but I did want to disclose this was a review copy, and Tom figures I've liked the games before. This is more of the same. I will probably like it as well, which is a good guess. I did enjoy this. I did like the improvements. One of the main improvements was on the map, changing the strength point losses from swapping out counters to tracking them on a track on the map. I'm always in favor of adding more charts and tables to the map. So there, I was in favor of adding those kinds of tracking systems to the map. The strength point losses, so a lot more charts and tables on the map. This game had the largest map of any of the ones so far. Actually, of any Hollandspiele game I played so far. It was basically I don't know if it is an actual 17 by 22, 22 by 34 map. So yeah, this is a full size map, which is it's just like what you'd see from a GMT or MMP type game. So that was cool to have a big map. It is similar in style to the more aggressive attitudes and Objective Shreveport maps. Not a lot of terrain. These games are not so much about figuring out the terrain. The terrain does play a factor, especially in terms of rivers and railroads and pikes. But you're not dealing with Zocs or things like that. So there's a lot of maneuver in these games. These games are about stealing a march on your enemies, maneuvering around armies, corps, things like that. which I really like. It creates a very puzzly aspect to these games, which is very entertaining. It's kind of the appeal of operational games, where you're solving a sort of maneuver puzzle. And the previous two games in the series felt very much that way, and this one felt very much that way as well. Um, Supply rules have changed in this, so they're a they're more complex in this than they are in previous games, and you have to maintain your supply. Um, Rather, there's no maintenance. There's no sort of automatic maintenance of supply if you have if you can trace a line. Here it is, unless your guys have wagons full of supplies, they're not in supply, and it's very hard to get wagons full of supplies in the game unless you take some of the main supply hubs like Murfreesboro, Chattanooga, or Nashville. Um, and then even if you do take those, then you have to get out of there and transport those supplies to the armies that need them. So that was a real problem for Hood, who has a lot of supply to start the game with. But the more he attacks, the more his supply runs out. And so this game created this wonderful sort of timing factor. You're racing against you're using up your supply, and you're racing against winter. And I think starting turn 10, winter begins, where you can no longer augment your army's movement capabilities. And I think turns 10 and 11 are an ice storm, which is not only can you not augment your movement, but you're penalized in movement. So, and then a lot of other things change in terms of the cards you can play and things like that at the start of the winter phase. So that makes it very much a race against the clock for the Confederates. The problem is you are limited to kind of a single railroad that runs from Tuscumbia, Alabama to Nashville. And one of the Confederate cards allows them to run an extra supply point up that railroad. So that sort of behooves Hood to try and clear that line basically from Pulaski, Tennessee, up through Columbia, up through Spring Hill, and up through Franklin. It sort of forces him along that line if he wants to utilize that extra supply point towards the end of the game. I think it's on turn 10 or later. So it sort of forces you into that historical thing. You can't just run around the Union armies that are along that rail line that are in the Spring Hill and Franklin area. So if you want to utilize that supply point. And the problem is for the Confederates, by the time you're getting into the later turns of the game, you're going to need that supply point. Otherwise, your army's attacking at half strength, and you're not going to take Nashville with a half-strength Confederate army, especially a half-strength Confederate army that has been depleted by the end of the game, or towards the end of the game. So it's just all about timing, and can you steal a march somewhere? Can you get around a flank? Can you get into that vicinity of Nashville and get a lucky result with Hood before you've been hit by first Schofield and then Thomas's armies / corps? Can you create a wild card with Forrest? That's one thing I was able to do with Forrest, was to take Murfreesboro, and that kind of pulled in certainly Wilson's cavalry and Steedman's infantry, which I pulled up as a garrison or he wasn't a garrison, but he may have been in Chattanooga. I used the Union rail movement to pull an army from that Chattanooga area. It may have been, maybe he was in Tullahoma, or I don't remember where. I don't remember where he started, but I pulled him in. But that kind of pulled stuff. Forrest was able to pull off Union troops to deal with him, which gave Hood an advantage to not have to have as many Union troops stacked up between him and Nashville. So, so that's where Forrest comes in handy. As for the Confederates ever taking Nashville, I don't think you could do it with Forrest. I mean, you wouldn't be able to hold it, or you wouldn't be able to hold Murfreesboro, for example. I would have had to keep moving with Forrest. Could Hood split off enough guys to threaten Chattanooga? That's the thing. I don't know. Chattanooga felt totally out of bounds for me. And, like the rules had, let me double check this. Um, like the rules had, at the end of the game, both players can gain the following by occupying these cities. Yeah, so the Union gets 2 VP for occupying Chattanooga. So, that's rough. And I guess I didn't look to see what constitutes occupation, but there was nobody in Tuscumbia, but the Confederates would get 1 VP for occupying that. I guess if nobody's in Tuscumbia, I don't know if you get the victory point for that or not. If you do, then it would have been a 1 victory point game, but I think the last victory point still would have been scored by the Union for having Chattanooga, so that would give them still the win. But that 2 victory point swing for Chattanooga is a big deal, and I don't know how the Confederates could get enough force to bear to realistically take it in the time of the game. I mean, it's a pretty quick game. It's a pretty light game. It's one of the reasons I like it. This is certainly much faster playing than any Civil War Brigade series title. It is definitely lighter than Civil War Brigade series title. That said, I still feel like it gives you a good historical result. In terms of components, it's the typical good laser cut thick counters that Hollandspiele has. The map has this wonderful antiqued look to it. It's a large map. It's got some excellent displays, orders of battle, and displays. My only complaint is, and this is a first for me, that the cover, this color, sort of this sort of sickly brown color, and then the pinkish hue of the map here. It's first miss for me on Tom Russell's usually excellent coverage for these games, solely because of colors. I mean, this great sort of ghostly, I forget what you call this, like not a reverse image, but a where you blow out the contrast and then create this sort of high contrast image. That looks cool with Hood, and Hood's Last Gamble. The title's great, but brown and pink, not a good color combination. I don't know. My image of the Battle of Franklin, is of a famous, not famous, but of a good painting that I saw of Updike's charge at the Cotton Gin, which had this sort of brick and had these winter colors, lots of browns, and then you had the butternut and the blue of the two sides fighting, and then this brick wall. So I like the browns are good for winter colors, but I don't know if I would have done, something to look like brick, like a more reddish color. And I don't know if you would have done that, like left the map as the brown antique map and done more of a reddish color for the title and the second color. I don't know. Like the composition, the design is good here. It's just the colors are all wrong. So, but anybody who's watched my videos knows I'm very particular about my cover art. I've had high praises for everything that Hollandspiele has done cover art wise so far. This is my first appraisal of the Hollandspiele cover art as a swing and a miss. Totally on colors, though. I think the design and composition was fine for it. It was just coloring. So I had to have, that's my first negative on Hollandspiele artwork. But there you go. But the game, otherwise, aside from my little nitpicky crap about the artwork, the game, again, excellent. This design, this system is evolving. More improvements are being made in terms of the graphics and the user ease of use in terms of the map and things like that. So only going up, only improving in that regard. The supply rules for this I thought were fantastic, and maybe really only applicable for this, where you're in a late war, winter campaign. It's very much going to be not whether your supply line is open, but whether you physically have the supplies with you that you need to properly fight a battle. And I think that was excellent for this campaign in particular. I don't know if it's applicable, if that kind of rule or that kind of system is applicable across all the other titles in the game, but that's it was excellent for this, and so I really enjoyed that aspect of the rules here. So I think another successful John Tyson design from Hollandspiele, and I would recommend picking it up as the latest evolution in this system. I think most people will enjoy it. A great treatment of a little gamed campaign in the Civil War. Thanks for watching.